Thanks for joining us in our comic book coffee break. I'm Nick Gunning.
And Mrs. Garrett.
Thank you.
Uh, and I'm Eric Mickles, known online as Dusk versus Tweak. I'm just going to cut to it. I'm just drinking water right now because I had a Coke, and the past hour was a little stressful, and I'm on a caffeine high, and I need to mellow out with just some straight water.
I understand. I have got tea. Once again, this is a chai tea in a Linus mug. Eric, I don't know if you're aware, but I played Linus and You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown.
Yes.
Did you know that?
I could write your unofficial theater biography.
Did you write the official one?
Did you want to? Like I fill out the
blanks. Yeah,
I
think I'd prefer that. Yeah, I would prefer that. Yeah.
Nick was terrified to go out on stage each and every time. He had to keep a towel in his pants so that it would absorb the pee.
Though I once, this story, I once had to go on as the Artful Dodger, only running through it once and just winging it. And that was pretty. That's like an actor's nightmare, right?
Yeah, or an improv comedian's dream.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
Did you go on and wait a minute, Oliver, where'd you get this spaghetti?
I did. Yeah, I just kept throwing things in there. Pagan's like, what'd you guys steal today? And I'm like, a Volkswagen Bug.
Whoa, let's get in it. Oh no, the tires fell off.
They were not happy with my performance because of all the improv. But you know what? 24 hours notice. What are you going to do? Yeah. This show is brought to you by the Radio Meanwhile Network.
You can find more about the show and others like it at the network's website, radiomeanwhile.com.
Well, we had a rough episode of 90210. Let me tell you.
Oh, part of Radio Mean, yeah.
Yeah. Over on 902 and Here We Go and 90210 Rewatch podcast that I host for the Radio Meanwhile Network. A lot of heavy issues being sloppily handled in a recent season 4 episode. So
I'm glad you said recent season 4 instead of just an episode.
We gingerly discussed this problematic episode, so you can find that over on SoundCloud or anywhere you get your podcast.
Cool.
Woo!
Dynamere's in there though, so that's cool.
I know. Yeah. I added your comments in a recent episode. You pointed out credits that we missed, so I did include them.
Yeah, I did include them in the for you. I mean, I guess comic book wise, she's Barbara Gordon in the.
Yeah.
Is she Barbara Gordon? Do they say
she
Gordon?
Is.
Okay, so yeah,
they do.
She's Oracle.
Yeah.
And gosh, when was that? 2001.
It's early. During Smallville because they kind of make references to Smallville in it.
Oh, right. I remember they say something about a meteor.
They do. They treat like the Smallville meteor showers as like an event that people are aware of.
Right.
But yeah, and Dynamere actually vocally reprised that role on Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah.
Over the recent crossover.
Dynamere. Dynamere, more like Dynamite.
She's on both iterations of 90210 as well, playing different characters, but she's there. So
cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, let's talk comic books. Yeah, how's your new year of comic books going so far?
I thought it was light, but there's a reason for that.
Okay.
A comic book reason.
Oh, okay.
I've been reading Hellblazer.
Okay, like Constantine?
The Constantine series. I never realized, I knew it was a long-running comic. I didn't realize it went basically until Vertigo was done.
Oh, that's a long haul then.
So that's 300 issues. So 300 issues running and, very successful and everything. So I thought I was at one place, but Goodreads had them listed as two different ones, so it screwed me up.
Okay.
So I got my copy. I started at volume 6, and then read volume 6 and 7.
Oh,
and
back to
I'm
back.
Reading volume 8.
Nice.
And they're like big ones, so they've been taking kind of a lot of my time. I've been reading these on lunch breaks and everything.
Yeah.
I'm on Garth Ennis's run, so I talked about this last time that I was on Jamie Delano's run, and I guess I had just read all that and then stopped and never picked it up. So, yeah, now I'm on Garth Ennis. I think volume 8, the one I'm on, might be his last one there. He had a pretty long run on the series. No, because he wrote 5. All right. The point is, I've been reading these, but I'm back and I'm enjoying them.
You're enjoying them? Okay.
Yes, I am enjoying them.
That's a nice change of pace for you to read some comic books that you like.
Steve Dillon's the artist.
Okay.
And normally for the Punisher stuff, I've been finding his art to be I'm so done with this art style. but it's almost like he's more detailed in comic booky in these.
I wonder if it's like if Vertigo's turnaround time is they have more.
Yeah, or
more freedom.
I also just kind of feel like his style has simplified a little bit. Like he does a lot of talking heads, and so there's more to do with this stuff. Then I mean, with the Punisher, you're just looking at a dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been good. It's nice getting back to like Vertigo, having like Vertigo comics to read, and I mean the one I'm on goes up to issue 83, which means I still have 220 Constantine comics to read after I finish this.
After this, you have 200 more?
Yeah, because there's 300 issues.
Oh my gosh!
So this goes up to 83.
Yowzer!
So
that's a long haul.
I have a lot of Constantine. I have ahead of me, which is nice. This is in that weird kind of realm where it is in the DC universe, but it's not, in the same way that Morpheus from Sandman would sometimes interact with Martian Manhunter or Dr. Destiny. Constantine, he talks to Swamp Thing, shows up. Etrigan is mentioned. He kind of talks about the other DC magicians in the same way that like the Marvel Netflix shows would talk about the Avengers. Like, what about the big green guy?
That thing in New York that happened.
Yeah.
That's all we can say.
So it's in that kind of strange realm. And also, I think one of the most terrifying versions of hell I ever see is in the Vertigo comics, in this like Sandman Constantine universe. I remember the first time I read a Sandman comic, it was, I think it's volume 4, where Morpheus goes to confront Lucifer at the gates of hell. And you just get this tour of hell. I remember reading that as a teenager and be like, holy crap, hell sucks! It scared the crap out. It was one of the most terrifying things I had ever read. And then I pick up Constantine and like, remember what hell's like? I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right! I'm still scared. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
Are you going the distance? Are you going to read 220 more issues of Constantine?
Yeah, I don't think I think they're still putting out the trades.
Okay.
I still think there's a few more like to come, so I don't know how far I can read to catch up. I don't know how many my library has. I think they go up to at least 14. So I'm just going to read as much as I can.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm liking it. It's funny because part of me's like, why doesn't Constantine ever use magic? But I mean, he does, just in different ways, and he's more of like a personality. He's cunning, he's charismatic, he gets out of things with his mind.
Oh,
but he could do magic if he wants.
Yeah.
So there's been some vampires. This is not a series I would ever suggest to you, and I don't think you'd ever have any interest in.
Probably not. No.
Yeah.
No, all the talk of hellscapes, I think, probably turned me off.
Yeah, the last volume was kind of dealing with him like in a very happy relationship, and you just knew it was gonna end poorly. But yeah, it's nice to be back. It's nice to know I have a whole bunch to do. It kind of fills that. I don't know. It's just nice to have like this big chunky thing to read that I've been enjoying. I'm glad I've been enjoying. I didn't think I was gonna like the Garth Ennis stuff because he can be very like. I don't know. His type of humor can be not my type of humor.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But it's been working.
Yeah. You're notoriously dry and unfunny. I think is that's. I'm just reading the comments. That's not me talking. That's the world.
There's nothing really to talk about it. But reading this reminded me I wanted to catch up again with Legends of Tomorrow because Constantine is over there now.
Yeah.
And so. I didn't force her to but she was just on the couch and I turned it on. I got us back to Flash and Arrow.
Yeah.
So we watched, so we're doing this thing now where we watch 4 episodes of Flash.
Holy crap. Okay.
Not at once, but we have to watch 4 episodes of Flash.
Oh.
Then we go back and we watch 4 episodes of Arrow and then back instead of doing like 1 episode and then 1 episode.
Yeah.
The 4 episode thing kind of gives us some momentum and get chunks out of the way.
We were doing when we were catching up, we were doing a lot of discs, rather than just Netflix or whatever. And so that's what we do. We'd finish a disc of one and then move on to the next. When I'd always kind of be keeping an eye out of like, when is this going to be problematic?
Right.
And it worked pretty well.
Yeah.
We completely finished Arrow. We gave up on Supergirl in the penultimate season, I guess. We're a little behind on Flash, and once you have some Legends of Tomorrow is so famous for its cast changes, and I don't think it's much of a spoiler to say that Brandon Routh eventually leaves.
Mm-hmm.
But when that happens, it's really hard to go on because he's such a different character. Like his like brightness, his like overall like light character that he brings is really missing when you have him out of there. And we're just kind of like, what's the center of this show now? But yeah, it's those are challenging to stay up with.
What was I gonna say? Oh, so hopefully next episode I'll be talking about finally finishing season 2 of Supergirl.
Wow, season 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was doing it, and then I fell behind, and then we weren't
know.
catching up, and so then I couldn't watch Legends of Tomorrow, and it's just a thing.
Yeah.
But I'm good.
That's my way to go, and that's what's frustrating to me about the crossovers. It's like a double-edged sword because
it's fun, but then they become I can't just. I watched season 2 of Legends of Tomorrow, like from beginning to end, like just binged it, unlike any of these other DC CW shows. But knowing that there's a substantial crossover, I was like, well, I can't do that. I have to.
Well, see, and we did the opposite because we were completely caught up on Legends and not caught up in anything else. So we were like, we'll just skip the crossover episodes. And then it's like characters have died, like characters have gotten married in the crossover episode. So we're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So they're really not conducive to just following one show, which is kind of problematic. So, I feel like the crossovers really should kind of be a big event, but that doesn't really like change where characters are in their respective series, but they don't feel that way at all. Right. So,
well, hopefully again, next episode, I will be talking about season 2 of Supergirl.
Okay. All right. Well, I also read some off the beaten path DC stuff, and this is a little bit of a preview because this, as we record, this title doesn't actually come out yet. It doesn't come out until January 5th. So a little bit of a prelude here, and that is House of L: Shadow Threat by Claudia Gray and Eric Zawadzki. This is a graphic novel set on a pre-explosion. I guess that's the only way you can set a Krypton story, but it's before Krypton explodes. And it follows these two characters, Zahn and Sarah, and it's like they're guilds, and their two guilds don't ever cross paths, but they have, and Jor-El and Lara have this whole thing going on trying to stop the destruction of Krypton and all that.
Yeah, as they're wont to do.
They are. Looking at some of the early advanced reviews of this, people have praised the art, and I found the art, while it's consistent and it kind of gels with the story, I found it very uninteresting, very monochromatic, and I just don't like the character designs, and the world of Krypton, to me, just doesn't seem very interesting. So right away, there were some dings for me on that. I don't know that this is marketed as number 1, like volume 1, and it certainly ends that way where a volume 2 is coming. I don't think this is one that I'm going to follow. Have you ever read, Kevin J. Anderson has a book called, I don't even remember, The Last Days of Krypton, something like that. Are you familiar with this book?
I'm familiar with it. I have not read it. Yeah, I'm not familiar with this artist either.
I mean, Kevin J. Anderson is an author that I like, the Jedi Academy trilogy and all that. But that book, I think there's a lot of parallels to this graphic novel, and they both kind of suffer from the same thing, is that, like, what's going to happen. So, like, as characters try to prevent the destruction of Krypton, and as characters are, like, working towards this goal, it's like, yeah, but Krypton's going to explode. And it wrapped up in it when, like, that's the end game, the end of all life, So this one, for me, just didn't quite do it. As much as I like Claudia Gray, this wasn't for me.
Okay. I'm disappointed by that. I was thinking, like, when you put this on the list, that I tend to be like, a story on Krypton, but then, like, weirdly, more often than not, I kind of get behind the story when I'm, like, experiencing it or reading it.
I wouldn't rule this out for you. I think it's something you might get down with. I wouldn't say don't read it. I would be interested to hear your take on it, because we tend to pull different things out of graphic novels, particularly Superman stories. I feel like we gravitate towards different aspects of it. So
I tend to pull a Brainiac out of the hat.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, given your more like robust sci-fi background, you might find more in this than I did.
Hey,
so
thanks for saying that.
Oh, you're welcome. So read it and report back.
Okay, but you got this early.
I did.
So I don't know when it'd be there.
January 5th is the street date, so we'll see about that.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of sci-fi, I did start the Simon and Kirby sci-fi library, but this is a huge volume, so I was going to kind of break it up as we go along. Next week, I plan to have read their 11 issue series Blue Bolt, which is the first Simon Kirby superhero, and that's within this big library. But there's also standalone collections of Blue Bolt, so we'll talk a little bit more about that next week.
Okay.
If you have a light week, I'm going to share one more while we're talking about DC. Because this is another one that's on my son's shelf that he wanted me to read, and that's DC Super Friends for Justice by Shali Fish.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike something like Teen Titans Go or some of the other like Art Baltazar Franco kind of stuff, this is really more focused on telling standalone superhero stories for a younger age. And so I kind of appreciated that, because while there are like funny aspects to it, this to me reads much more like a Silver Age comic, but a little bit more straightforward in the storytelling. No one's trying to trick anybody into marrying anyone else, but it's just a quick, like, the Justice League is going to show up and have an adventure, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. So I felt like this was kind of good for that. Like where my son is reading age wise, he's 6, and he enjoys the goofiness of the Art Baltazar stuff, but this was a little bit more of a straightforward story, and I kind of appreciated that as a parent and as somebody who, is a fan of old school Super Friends. It was just, it was just a good time.
Right.
Big chunky character designs, like the action figures were. Very bright, very colorful.
Like, based on the toy line.
Yeah, the Mattel. Yeah, it is. So yeah, I think there's plenty here, especially for kids. But as far as just like little Justice League adventures, I think it's a little bit more on the straight and narrow versus some of the more goofier output that they tend to do for this age. So I liked it more as a parent than as a comic book fan, but still worth checking out.
Right. Okay.
What else you got for me?
I read the next volume of New Mutants. Gosh, what am I on then? This was New Mutants Classic Volume 6. So that's like issues 41 through 47 and the annual 2. It's a weirder volume. I mean, last volume was weird because it was in the middle of Secret Wars 2.
Yeah.
This one's a little bit more character specific. Each character kind of gets an issue to be focused. Well, not each, but like Cannibal kind of gets an issue. Wolfsbane does. Daniel Moonstar gets one. One of the things I've taken away from this is that I really like Daniel Moonstar. I have never been into that character at all, but then I've never really read New Mutants or paid attention to this team. So like a lot of times, like Cannonball, I know from when he joined the X-Men.
Yeah.
Wolfsbane, I know from Peter David's X Factor. You know, it's like any part of these characters I'm familiar with are in much different runs under different authors. So like, and Daniel Moonstar, I mean, I know later on she becomes a Valkyrie. Like that's a thing, and she'll just like leave the books. So I guess I've just never run into her and never known what her power is or anything. But reading this, I just, I really think she's a cool character. Her and Magic. I mean, the, what's his name? Doug Ramsey, the one who can like know any language, hasn't done anything for me. Neither has Warlock. I think maybe the next writers kind of do stuff with them. But this one also has the issue where it's kind of like on a very special episode of the New Mutants. The kids go to a school and meet another student who commits suicide.
Oh wow!
Yes,
that is dark.
It's a dark issue where they go to a school and this kid is a mutant, but he's secretly a mutant. Nobody knows. And like the other kids, the cool kids at this school, make fun of mutants. And so he kind of like, he keeps it a secret. He doesn't tell anyone. He meets the New Mutants. He meets Kitty Pryde, and they kind of hit it off. And there's a lot of like, he says something, and in his head he's like, oh, she must think I'm an idiot. And then she says something, and she thinks, oh, he's nice. And they're kind of like getting it on. They're not getting it on. They're no, they're hitting it off. And they're hanging out with the other New Mutants, and this kid, he tries to, the only cool kids he knows at his school make fun of mutants. So he he says some mutant jokes.
Uh-oh.
And the New Mutants and Kitty are like, I thought you were nice. We're out of here. And he's like,
Oh,
wait, no. But then
I was just trying to fit in.
Then the other kids at school trick him into thinking that X Factor's coming. Because if you remember, X Factor is pretending to be
Yes.
mutant
I
hunters.
remember. Yes, I remember.
So he sees this and everything, and he's like, they're going to take my powers away. So he hangs himself in his parents' basement.
Wow.
And then Kitty Pryde does a speech at his school. And that's what happens to that kid.
Yikes.
Yeah, it is very dark. It's one of those
heavy.
things like don't joke, don't shoot flaming arrows and say you're just kidding. It's a issue 45.
Yeah.
And then it goes on to be the Mutant Massacre crossover. Wow. So, it's a good time to be a kid in the New Mutants.
Apparently. Yeah.
Anyway.
There's
there's also an
something.
issue where they go after Empath, the guy who he can manipulate people's emotions and make them fall in love with him and everything. They also go beat him up, and his team, the Hellions, are like, oh, should we go help him? They're like, nah, let's just go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so
that's pretty careless.
A better volume this one than last, which was just a mess. Though again, that dark story.
Yeah.
So.
That's where they get you.
Anyway.
Can I tell you a light story to offset the darkness you just told me?
Only if it's dark.
It was in my basement, so it's a little dark.
Okay.
My washing machine wasn't draining, and so I was trying to figure out what the problem was. And so I had to take pieces of it apart, and I got to this part where there was a drain, and I saw this sticking out of the bottom.
It's a Lego?
It was blocking it, and I was like, my son... Lego, and then I took it all apart and I kept finding pieces, and I eventually was able to put together this.
It's Superman,
which is a Golden Age Superman Lego figure that you and I got at that sci-fi convention that we went to in Cleveland. So here I was going to blame my son, and it's my Golden Age Superman.
Yeah.
So you live and you learn as a parent. That's the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you some of the Marvel things that I read. First of all, I'm going to talk about Mace Windu. I read Star Wars Mace Windu. It's a Mace Windu miniseries by Matt Owens. This was fine. This was just kind of fine. It wasn't really...
He's not the most developed character in the Star Wars universe.
That's the thing. That's kind of why I read it, because I get the appeal. I mean, Sam Jackson as a Jedi with a purple lightsaber is just a cool concept.
Yeah.
But he's underdeveloped in the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
Which is crazy because every one of those movies is 4 hours long. So how they couldn't throw some screen time to Sam Jackson, I don't know. But this to me didn't really this was the opportunity, I think, to develop this character a little more. And we do get an issue that's a flashback to him as a Padawan. And that was nice to see a little bit of development there. But by the end of it, I don't really feel like I know Mace Windu as a character any more than I did before I started.
Yeah,
so
a lot of his appeal in the movies that there is just that it's Sam Jackson and he has a presence. So Sam Jackson being there does a lot of the legwork for you. Maybe I shouldn't have said legwork. Didn't he lose his legs? No, he just got electrocuted and thrown out.
Yeah,
okay. He probably got his legs still.
He probably does.
Just casting somebody with that present does a lot of the character work for you. But the movies never did it. And even they're no longer canon, but the old Clone Wars comics and stuff. Yeah, he was just kind of a cool guy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I felt like he was done a disservice in the movies, and I really, like I said, I felt like this miniseries was the chance to rectify that, and it to me just felt like more of the same. So, and looking at the reviews, I think that's actually one where I am on the side of the majority here, where people felt like, why do this if you're not gonna actually do right by the character? And so I don't know. I mean,
it's funny because I remember having the same problems reading the Poe Dameron comic, and that was just right after Force Awakens. So I was like, well, they don't know much about Poe Dameron to do anything with him in this comics.
Yeah, but
that was just after one movie. This would be after 3 movies, 7 seasons of the Clone Wars cartoon.
Yeah,
and a whole bunch of previous comics, and it is still just kind of what does Mace want in life? What is best in life for Mace Windu?
I know. Yeah.
If I said Mace, we're getting a pizza, Mace Windu wants, what would he say?
I don't know.
Is he a vegetarian?
I don't know. Yeah. Wish I could tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that I could tell you. Speaking of Star Wars, by the way, We watched The Empire Strikes Back on New Year's Eve with my son,
Mm-hmm.
who had never seen it before, and I am pleased to report that we successfully have shielded him from the big Vader reveal. So when we get to
Congratulations.
that point and Vader says what he says, he was like, you know,
Yeah.
but he was very distressed by the Wampa eating the Tauntaun, and that stayed with him throughout the whole movie.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's gone. Did you tell him that's just life? That's just the life cycle.
yeah, I was like, hey, man, carnivores, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Did you
So,
explain to him that a wampa is a reptomammal?
I didn't. I should have, in hindsight. I really should have.
I like watching Empire around Christmas time as well. There's something about it.
It's very snowy.
Yeah,
it
it's
is.
snowy.
Yep.
A friend of mine had a tree ornament that had Vader on the stairs saying, "You are not a Jedi yet."
Yeah.
That was fun.
This is always, I'm always, and we'll see when we get to Return of the Jedi, but I always remember Return of the Jedi most fondly. And on this rewatch of Empire, I was like, no, I know it's not breaking new ground to say that Empire Strikes Back is great, but I really did like enjoy it more than I ever have. I felt like, man, this is just so tight,
Yeah, but Empire is my fave of them, but Return of the Jedi is much more of like a crowd pleaser.
Okay.
All
right.
You remember, it's got all the big, it's got the Death Star 2, it's got the big Luke and Vader fights, it's got all that.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where it's just, it goes down easier than Empire and watching like Han get tortured and
yeah.
It's less emotionally draining.
I've got to say though, this rewatch has really been cementing in my mind that Leia truly is my favorite character of the Star Wars universe. She always has been, but watching this again, I'm just struck by how like in charge she is, and not in like she's an ice queen, as normally like that kind of like strong woman would be presented in like 80s films. I just think throughout she is just like tough and in charge. She has the relationship with Han, but that's not the thing that defines her. Defines her. The character's not diminished by that. She just does what she wants and is strong and powerful throughout. And I was impressed by that, especially given the time.
The emotional whiplash between Vader in Empire and Vader in Return is ridiculous. The quick turn where he's like, I will kill everyone. To Return of the Jedi, he's just like, oh, well, everyone deserves a second chance. Colonel Williams, good luck. I don't know. It's just, we go from this Vader who's dropping lieutenants left and right and like willing to slice his son in half, but also a little to just being like, your mother was so beautiful.
They say fatherhood changes you, so I guess that's just Vader,
I wasn't just living for me anymore. Sister. Yes.
I have three more to talk about. Do you have others?
Yeah, I have others.
Okay, hit me.
Okay. I read Batman. Well, I read Detective Comics, Volume 1.
Oh, yeah.
Rise of the Batmen with James Tyrion the Fourth.
Yeah.
Tynion. And I guess who's the artist here? Andy Burroughs, Alvaro Mendez Bueno. It kind of goes different styles. Like every now and then it's like a normal kind of like your standard comic book art, and then there's kind of like this weird watercolor painting version of somebody's like having an emotional moment.
This collection to me, like if you did not know the Batwoman character and you like started watching the CW show, I think this is where I would send someone to see like Batwoman large and in charge, because the Batwoman elegy is so trippy.
The Batwoman comics have been very like Grant Morrison-y.
Yes, they have. But I feel like this shows her as the leader of the team and like really, but it still deals with like Batwoman's relationship with her father and everything. I just think this is a real good showcase for Batwoman.
Has she a DC showcase, if you will?
Ah.
Yeah. Has she always been Bruce Wayne's cousin?
Yes.
Well, let me tell you a thing I learned in 2021. Batwoman is Batman's cousin.
Yeah.
I did not know this at all. When he says something, they say something like we're family. I'm like, what? I get it because she's not Carol. Kate Kane. She's Kate Kane.
Yeah.
And also then we have two Kanes in this book.
Who else?
It's Cassandra Kane as Orphan.
Oh, that's true. You're
Yeah.
right.
Anyway, I did not know that Kate Kane was Batman's cousin in all
Yes,
these
and
years.
I think it's that the relationship is through the mother who is
Yeah.
dead, so it
Yes.
doesn't really change. Like Bruce doesn't have a doting aunt out there or
No,
something, you know.
Kate's Batwoman's dad is Bruce Wayne's uncle.
Oh, just straight up, not through marriage?
No, through marriage. Well,
Oh, yeah,
that's
yeah.
how uncles work. They're always through marriage.
What? No, no. Is Jacob Kane one of Bruce's parents' siblings, or is
Yeah,
it
I
like
think
through marriage?
isn't he Martha's brother?
Is it? Is
I
that what
thought
it is?
that's what
Okay.
it went at.
All right.
Maybe I read it wrong. Maybe he's just the brother through marriage. I guess anytime there's a mention of Bruce Wayne having family, I'm like, he has family? It
Yeah.
just seems it's obviously I mean, it makes sense that he would have family, but it just sometimes it also feels weird that Bruce Wayne, billionaire orphan boy who grows up and becomes Batman, the idea that he has family is weird. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, yes. If you haven't read it, Batman gets Kate Kane, aka Batwoman, Tim Drake Robin, Cassandra Cain Orphan, Stephanie Brown Spoiler, and not Matt Higgins, the other guy, the other Clayface.
Oh. Basil?
Basil. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He forms a team to take on this army that's coming in. The army, this military group has based themselves off of Batman, so they're like, what if there was a whole army of Batman? Yeah, I had a good time. Mainly I went back to start reading these detective comics because Tinian is taking over the Batman book and is writing like the Joker War and everything, so I was like, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this run. It's it sort of goes in and out, I feel like. When it really, really zeroes in on Clayface, it's a little like, okay. But
Poor Clayface.
for the most part,
he
I
just
think
wanted to go see a movie, but he's a Clayface.
This run also ties in really tightly to Super Sons, weirdly enough.
Pass.
So, yeah, no, it's fine. You don't need to read Super Sons.
But
it's more
again,
like you have to have read this to read Super Sons of the future.
This is the crap that annoys me with the fallout from New 52, in that I don't know what Batman and Tim Drake's relationship is.
Yeah, it's confusing.
They talk about, like, you never thought of yourself as a Robin, but you were always Robin to me. And if this was, like, pre-New 52, before they rebooted the universe, I would know exactly how Tim Drake related to Batman. But doing this, I'm like, right, Tim Drake was never Robin, but he was, because he was Red Robin when they
he was Red Robin. Well, that's the thing. I mean, New 52 changes a lot. New 52 is really where the concept of Batwoman and Batman being cousins comes in, and it's also the point where Tim Drake is kind of, I don't know, relegated to adjunct status in the Bat family, I guess.
Everybody else
becomes more a Teen Titan than a Bat family.
Dick Grayson is still Robin who became Nightwing. Jason Todd is still Robin who became Red Hood. Damian is the current Robin. But then Tim Drake, they don't have any room because it's all supposed to take place in 5 years. So they rebooted his. It's just very confusing and frustrating.
It is. Yeah.
Because that's the legwork that was already done, and now I have to read it and be like, how do any of these characters relate to each other again?
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yep.
DC's such a mess, but at the same time, I don't know. I guess I'm not a big enough DC fan to totally complain about that stuff, but I am a Batman fan, so I can complain about that stuff.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I do.
Good for you.
All right.
Hey, I finally read that Neil Adams, Christos Gage first X-Men comic. Have you ever read this?
No.
Okay. Well, I sort of have a weird fascination with these like sloppy Neil Adams, like latter-day Neil Adams written and illustrated by things. Superman, Coming of the Superman, was actually good. I mean, to me, that felt like a weird, like 1980s Superman story that they found somewhere and threw out there. I read that first, then I read Batman Odyssey, which is just a complete nightmare. I mean, it's impossible to follow. It makes no sense.
Like Mad Hatter nightmare?
Bruce Wayne is hairy like a wildebeest, and that's terrible. This first X-Men, I don't think that you would like it, but I kind of did. It's about, the story is mutants are just now, people are becoming aware that mutants are a thing, and the government's like, oh, round up those guys. They got to get out of here. And so Wolverine and Sabretooth are sort of like, well, let's let's gather some mutants together and we'll kind of protect other mutants. So that's as close to like the concept of the X-Men as they get, is that they kind of gather like-minded mutants together.
Mm-hmm.
Xavier plays a really minor role in this, and it's sort of like it's just really like an alternate take on all of the lore about how Wolverine gets to the Weapon X situation, about how Sabretooth becomes more of a villain, and how Xavier decides to open up the school. This is nothing that's going to replace like the stories that you know, but I think as an alternate take and an alternate look, it's actually pretty successful.
Okay, I
So
know I haven't read this. I know, it's got weird continuity things in
yeah,
it.
I would not read it with any eye to trying to make it fit into any other story.
Mm-hmm.
If you were ever going to pick it up, and again, I don't think you'd really like it, but if you were, I think you'd have to read it as like a what if kind of story,
Yeah.
because it doesn't really gel with anything. But I had a good time with it. It was better than I expected. It was definitely better than Batman Odyssey.
Okay.
Yep, that's it for me Marvel wise this week. I read two non DC, non Marvel books that I can talk about.
Just say it already. Gosh.
Okay. American Born Chinese by Gene Luen Yang. And this is funny because I feel like I'm coming to his work completely backwards. Because I think the Superman Truth stuff was the first that I read. Then Superman Smashes the Klan, then Dragon Hoops, and now like going back to the beginning with American Born
Mm-hmm.
Chinese. You've read this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it's all his stuff is solid. I think this just works, and I think it
takes a
yeah,
weird turn
it does.
that I did not
Yeah,
expect. I thought it was just going to be about an American-born Chinese boy
I did too.
trying to deal with the fact that others see him differently at school.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then it becomes kind of like this trippy. It starts like becoming like a parody of like 1950s sitcom tropes where
yes,
his Chinese born cousin comes and
yeah,
it's this big
yeah,
thing, and then it gets into the lore of Wukong,
yeah,
the
yeah,
monkey god,
yes.
and like before you read it, I'm like, I did not expect this
No,
at the end.
I didn't either. And I think the thing that it does, and I found some of this similar in Superman Smashes the Klan, where it brings out these, stereotypes and prejudice against Chinese people that I really just wasn't aware of, like overall. Like I just this was not something that it was really like part of my experience, or I hadn't really bumped up against these before. So to see him explore that in the way that he does, and especially in American Born Chinese, his own relationship with like how he was viewed and how he viewed others and how he viewed this his Chinese born cousin, I feel like was just all stuff that was new to me, but I
Mm-hmm.
found it really interesting and put forward in a way that was really kind of easy to understand
Mm-hmm.
and gave me some new perspective on that experience,
Yeah.
perspective that I didn't have before. So I enjoyed it just as a graphic novel, but I appreciate it for the context it gave me going forward. So 2 thumbs up if you haven't read it. I think I haven't read something by him that I haven't liked so far. So yeah, I mean, yeah, check it out.
And
Finally, I read Betty and Veronica, Friends, Best Friends, something like that,
aw,
by Jamie Lee Rotante, and
they
she
are
wrote
best
one called
friends.
Senior Year, which I loved. She wrote Betty and Veronica stories called Vixens, which I didn't like so much. This kind of falls in the didn't like, and it was weird because the back of this is like the first ever Archie graphic novel for young adults, and I was like, well, aren't
Aren't
they all?
all? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
What
I thought
has
that
Mark
was
Wade's run been?
I know. I thought that was strange marketing. I
Jugheads?
think they kind of mean when they say young adults, I think they mean more like the 10 to 12 age. That's what it seemed like it was more going for. Even with that, I don't think it really worked because each section was Betty and Veronica imagining like, what if we were the president? What if we were astronauts? And so it was kind of more like an anthology of stories that I didn't like. So what are you gonna do? Did you read anything else this
No,
week?
that was it.
Okay. Do you want to talk about things we watched?
I haven't watched anything. I talked about
Oh,
the
okay.
thing. Are we
Well,
doing
then
the top 5 thing?
we will.
'Cause
Yes,
we're
we are.
running. Okay.
Let's do it. Okay. Well, let me just tell you the 3 things I watched then. On New Year's Eve, we rewatched Birds of Prey for the first time since seeing it in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It still holds up. I don't know why people don't talk about this movie more.
It does kind of have like a mixed reputation, I think.
It does. I feel like it kind of gets lumped into how people feel critically about the Suicide Squad movie.
Yeah,
And I
that
think
doesn't seem fair.
that's really unfair to tie it to that because it's just so good. It's just so good. It finds this tone that's just perfect for the story it's trying to tell. I think Black Canary, Journey Smollett as Black Canary is great, and I really hope they use her in other stories. Huntress, The Question, I mean, the whole thing. I just feel like it's a really, really good movie that gets a bum rap. And I sort of feel like if it hadn't come out like days before the coronavirus hit, it might have like found its legs a little later on. But now it sort of feels like this forgotten curio of the DC extended universe. And I hope it's rediscovered because I think it's very good. I watched Tenet. Have you seen that yet?
No.
I'm curious to see what you think about this because I kind of thought it was a sloppy mess.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the visuals of like some things move backwards is just not as exciting as you'd think it was because it's just sort of like, yeah, that's what happens when you roll footage backwards. You know, I didn't get it, but I feel like you're a bigger Chris Nolan fan than I, so I'm curious to see what you think.
That's probably true.
And finally, my son and I rewatched, well, I had never seen it actually, the cartoon Gilligan's Planet, because as you know, Dawn Wells, Marianne of Gilligan's Island, recently passed away from COVID. And so I picked one that I'd never seen and that I thought my son would like. And so we watched all of Gilligan's Planet as a tribute to Dawn Wells, who voices both Marianne and Ginger in this. And he loved it. So that was a success. Yeah. So that was it for my weekend watching.
Yeah, that was sad.
It really was. Yeah, I
didn't realize it was going to hit you so hard, but then it did.
Well, you know, I mean, Gilligan's Island, I watched constantly when I was a kid. I think that was just in the Nick at Night rotation when I was a kid. It was everywhere, you know, so I watched it all the time. I watched the reunion movies, I feel like aired quite often as well. So that was just a big part of my childhood. So yeah, it was sad to hear that news. That leaves Tina Louise who played Ginger as the only surviving cast member from Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
So. All right, well, we decided to skip a quarter bin this week since it's the first episode of the new year and talk about some of our favorite.
I don't have enough money even for the quarter bin this week.
Understood.
Yeah.
I thought we'd just do a top 5 of our favorite graphic novels that we read in 2020. Not necessarily things that came out in 2020, but things that we read and enjoyed. So give me your first one. What do you got?
I tried to keep mine close to 2020, but
Good for you.
Also I tend to be behind and I read stuff on the app a lot, but there's a few I read. I chose for DC Black, the DC Black label, I chose Wonder Woman Dead Earth as the one because it was recent and it's probably my favorite of the DC Black label stuff I've read.
Yeah, I would agree.
This was 2020, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it just came out in December.
I thought it was cool. I thought it was fun. I thought it had a crazy vision and it went for it. And I'd like to see more ridiculous stuff like this rather than what if instead of 3 Jokers there were 4 Jokers.
Yeah, I like that they took a chance and did something different. I think now is definitely the time to do that. And why have a black label if you're not going to like take big swings like that?
Just so everybody can do their Arkham Asylum.
I guess
everybody's chasing that Grant Morrison Arkham Asylum dream.
I didn't have high hopes for a Frank Miller Superman story, but I thought Superman Year One was just such a train wreck.
Yeah.
So stupid.
Yeah.
A Superman that I did like in 2020, I've already name dropped in this episode, but Superman Smashes the Klan is right at the top of my list. Gene Luen Yang. If you haven't read that, go find it because it's really, because it's great start to finish. Visually, it's really impressive. The story it tells is good. I can't recommend it enough, so check it out.
This is also on my list.
Oh, okay.
I really liked it.
Look at that. We meet in the middle.
Again, my feelings on it is that I would own this if they put it out in a more traditional like hardcover format. Like this is the format it's in is definitely like geared towards the younger readers. It's more tradey. It matches like other young or juvenile graphic novels, but the story and the Superman stuff in here is just really good. It has kind of a classic vibe. So yeah, if they put it out in a more like if they did like a prestige printing of this, I would definitely have that in my collection. It's definitely one of the better more recent ones, but then I haven't read Truth yet. So after reading this, maybe I will read Truth, but I got to do it on the app. Seems like the only way to do it successfully.
Yeah. And I read everything in that storyline. You probably don't have to, but it is a kind of a convoluted, if you're not following like a reading order, it does kind of get away from you there.
Yeah.
One that I really enjoyed was, and this is not from 2020, this is 80s, I think, Green Arrow, The Wonder Year, by Mike Grell. And this actually does kind of fit with the different Wonder Year, but this actually does fit with my quarter bin, because I had an issue of this that I got for a quarter from my childhood. But this is just a tight Green Arrow story that's kind of his first year as Green Arrow. There's a political story in the backdrop. It is without question my favorite Green Arrow story. If somebody was gonna say, hey, I never read Green Arrow, what should I read? I would give them The Wonder Year, though I don't think it's actually collected very easily. Like I read this on the app, and I had some single issues as well.
Is it just about him in high school hitting puberty?
No, you're confusing it with the Fred Savage series, The Wonder Years, and it's different. But I did a deep dive on the Mike Grell run for the All the Book Show, actually. We did a whole Green Arrow spotlight when the Arrow TV show was going off the air. So you can find that at soundcloud.com/allthebooks or wherever you get your podcasts, because that was a fun episode. But yeah, Green Arrow Wonder Year was the best thing to come out of that reread for me. So I highly recommend that.
The Oliver Queen Winnie romance is just... It's really vital.
It is.
It's a vital part of his history.
It's a seminal moment. Yeah, for sure. You're still trying to think of Wonder Year jokes instead of telling me your next one.
I know.
On your list.
Why was I allowed to watch Wonder Years as a kid? That show was so sexual.
It's sexually charged.
I'm like 6 years old watching that, going like, "Wah!"
Yeah.
I had milk coming out of my nose.
Well, I mean, look at me. I was watching Beverly Hills 90210, so I guess yours was at least supposed to be a family show.
Yeah. All right. What did I... Oh, well, I already said Superman Smashes the Klan was my other one.
Yeah.
So that was your first one. So that was your second one.
Yes.
So Superman Smashes the Klan was my second one.
Okay.
So I'm doing the third one. Did I start? You know what? It doesn't matter. I'll do the third one then.
Okay.
I chose the Animorphs graphic novel, which was also this year.
Oh, yes.
And you better believe I was the first person to check this one out of my library.
I do believe that,
and at the same time, I feel bad about that because, maybe some kids wanted to check it out. But also, kids can't come in the library right now.
Speaking of libraries, I thought of you recently because I went in over the holiday break and was checking in. We were closed, but I went in to check in some of the things that were piling up, and I checked in a whole stack of Animorph books that had been requested on hold that came back. So somebody in Western New York is reading through the Animorph series, and we have them all thanks to one Eric Mickles.
When did I read this? In October? It came out in October, so there you go. Who was it? Chris Grine is the one who adapted it for the graphic novel and the art and everything. But yes, I felt this was as perfect as an adaptation for the first Animorph books as you can get. And what's nice about the Animorphs is that, unlike a lot of comic books, there's not a lot of retconning you have to do. If you're to do the invasion, you don't then have to be like, oh, well, with knowledge of what we have here, like the only thing is stuff that was already planned out, so the hints were already there. Yeah. So that's nice. But yeah, I mean, I've read the invasion in book form so many times, but reading this again, I was just like jazzed. I found an Animorph Reddit that I just ate up the memes for. So this was great. I definitely will read more of these, having read them all. I just wish I could.
It's smart to do because when we, again, you can go look at the All the Book Show because we did a whole Animorph spotlight on this, and I read the Invasion for that, and it's smart to do because it's a much more like dense kind of sci-fi than I was expecting for that for that age bracket, but it is woefully dated because it's just chocked full of modern for the 90s pop culture references.
I'm pretty sure they talk about 90210.
They do.
They do. In the series, I think they compare themselves to Luke Perry at times. Like I think Axe even says like I do something like I saw Dylan do on the show. I mean the bands, everything is very 90s, and this one the graphic novel balanced it. It didn't feel like the 90s, but I wasn't like, well, that wasn't how it worked then. I mean, there was just stuff when I looked at it, I'm like, well, that is how I imagined it. I guess I wish I could be a kid again.
Yes.
At however old I was at this.
Yeah, everyone knows.
I guess I wish that there was some... I don't know. I can never reread the Animorphs and get the same thing from it again.
That's true, you can't.
I just love them. I just love the Animorphs.
Do you remember for like 5 seconds when you and I were talking about doing an Animorphs podcast, and then you looked and somebody had beaten us by like a day?
We had waited, like, yeah. I had been like, oh, we should do this Animorph books where you've never read them, and I've read them.
Yeah.
And we just make it like a 25-minute episode.
Yeah.
And then, like, I waited the weekend.
Yeah.
And that Monday, like, one had popped up. And then after that, it's 20. You can't, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So.
Just for the record, I would still do this. Yeah. I just want that on record.
The Animorphs reread. I've listened to one or two. They get very serious about it. Some people a little bit more serious about this stuff than even like the Animorphs, which I love more than anything. Sometimes people get like, this thing is like this was brought down from Mount Sinai by Moses himself. I'm like, well
you know, honestly, that's I feel the same way about 90210 Rewatch podcast, because there, of course, are 90210 Rewatch podcasts, but I could never find one that like did what I wanted to do. So that's why I was glad. When
I feel like it's, I don't know. I still like making fun of the stuff I love. Like, I do the X-Men podcast, and I'm always mocking the X-Men in it, because a lot of times they do dumb stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So with the Animorphs, I'd probably make fun of it. I wouldn't let you make fun of it. You would say stuff about it, like, listen, kid!
No. You think that I'm stupid enough to make that mistake to criticize the Animorphs in your presence? I would never.
All right,
my third pick here is my one Archie pick for the year. So I've really been enjoying all of the modern Archie stuff. But this one stood out to me, and that's Sabrina the Teenage Witch by Kelly Thompson.
You cheated.
Well, it's the Archie universe. Volume 2 is not quite out yet. It's a long time in between.
I said my favorite Animorphs book was Goosebumps.
Yeah, that wouldn't count.
That's what this is.
But this Kelly Thompson Sabrina the Teenage Witch finds just the right line, because obviously, like, old school Sabrina the Teenage Witch is just like goofy to the max, you know. And modern Sabrina, like the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, is very like Satan heavy, which is not my jam at all. But I found this one.
You should read Hellblazer.
No thanks. I found the right balance here, because it does have like that magical element, and there is a layer of spookiness to it, but it is much more like magical spooky than like demonic spooky. And it still kind of maintains some of the humor from the old style like Sabrina story. So this to me was a 5-star read, and I've been anxiously awaiting volume 2 for, gosh, I don't even know, almost a year now. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, what's your next pick?
Well, I was going to say, how have we not gotten the Sabrina the Teenage Witch / Bewitched crossover ever?
That's a travesty. Yeah.
We did get a Bewitched Dream of Genie crossover?
Did we? No, I don't think so.
Why?
That's a mistake.
Why?
That's a mistake.
Why?
You're right.
It seems like the thing to do. Man, that would have been great. Remember when I met Barbara Eden?
I do, yeah. I've seen the pictures.
That's...
Yeah.
I mean, she was much, much older.
Yeah.
But it's still just like, hi, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Barbara Eden.
Yeah.
My voice was cracking. I hit puberty a second time.
I know you did. Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So, anyway.
What else? Yeah, what else you got?
Okay, so this was, I think this started in 2018, but the hardcover came out in 2019, which meant I read it in 2020.
Okay.
So... I'll just pick the House of X, Powers of X, X-Men crossover. Yeah,
you have to.
With Jonathan Hickman. This is, because again, I didn't read too much of 2020. This was much better than I thought it was going to be, because I don't like Jonathan Hickman in general. I find his writing to be a lot. I don't know how to describe his writing. I read his Infinity and his Avengers and stuff. I was like, I just wanted to die reading that stuff. I've never read comics like that before. It was like, you know what? Just kill me. Just kill me, so I don't have to either quit reading this or continue reading this, because I'm trapped in this molasses of a story. I can't get out. I'm sinking. Just end it. And I did get out, and I'm stronger for it. But the X-Men stuff, this series was just so weird, and what it was really doing is it was just telling a crazy sci-fi story, but with the X-Men, and using the X-Men in their history and the powers and characters to do this stuff. So it's kind of a story about like immortality and starting a new separate nation and you know, evolution, but also this other character having lived multiple lives and trying to save mutant kind. And a lot of this stuff could just be something that you just put in a crazy sci-fi story, but then he works around these powers that the characters have to do that immortality and bring in some of this history. So it was good. It was an entertaining read. I was very surprised by how much I liked it. There's a lot of like information in there. Like some pages are just like info fact pages. And it's like they're just pages that are just graphs of information. And I still found those like very entertaining. And I don't know. It surprised me because I don't like Jonathan Hickman in general. I think the art was a big part of it. Anyway, I still haven't read any of the stuff post this because I was waiting for it to kind of catch up in the app a little bit. From what I've seen, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy stuff like Sword of X and that kind of stuff, or it's X of Swords, or it's 10 of Swords. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy that stuff. And I don't trust Hickman to nail the landing in a way that I'll be satisfied for. But as just like a crazy... I don't know. It's almost like a reboot. It's almost like a reboot of the X-Men in a way, because it changes so much stuff or brings in new relationship elements that it's hard to not see this as like a line in the sand of like everything prior to. Even more so than like Grant Morrison did at the time. Like Grant Morrison was kind of updating things, but still like was very like a traditional X-Men adventure story at times. Right. But this one was like, I don't know how we come back from this. Yeah. So anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the Marvel app, this is a series that got me on the Marvel app. I had to finish the Red Hulk run that I started years ago. And the best one that I read this year in that run was Red Hulk Scorched Earth. This is by Jeff Parker and Gabriel Hardman. This was just a good time. This was just, like I kind of read this at the height of the pandemic. I hope it was the height of the pandemic. And it was where everybody just kind of hates the Red Hulk. And so he's going around and like getting into fights with all the Avengers who are like, I hate you. And eventually they just kind of settle into like, all right, here's how we're going to use Red Hulk. Steve Rogers steps in and kind of comes up with a plan. And I just thought it was big, bright, colorful, like epic mayhem. It was just fun from start to finish. So Red Hulk Scorched Earth is my pick for that.
Do you have a Red Hulk action figure?
I don't know.
No? You love him.
I know. Is there a pop figure? Someone send me a Red Hulk pop figure.
Oh, I imagine you could just get a regular Hulk and then just paint him.
And just spray paint it. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So, all right. Are we on your last? What's your last?
Yeah. All right. Talk about being surprised by something. I read that Terminator Omnibus. Yeah. That Dark Horse had put out. That I just found out Volume 2 is available on Hoopla.
Yeah.
From my other library. Man, I was shocked reading this year by how good these comics were, and I didn't think I could love Terminator again. Or at least I didn't think I could get excited for Terminator anymore. Like, I know I'll always love Terminator 2 and have different feelings about 1 and 3, but I thought, like, after the last 3 Terminator, oh my gosh, after the last 3 Terminators,
so many.
I just felt like my love had turned to sand for Terminator.
That happens.
I just felt like the that character in the Hellboy movie with the blades when they because he's full of sand, we find out.
Okay.
I thought I was like, I was full of sand when it came to that. But I read this and I was like, these are so good. These are like fun and exciting, and they all have to kind of step away from the Sarah Connor, John Connor stuff because they can't step on Cameron's toes. but they still find a way to do that. Like, they have to go find this other Sarah Connor, and like these other Terminators are out, or this group is just going into the past, and they're kind of lost. And then there's that ridiculous big Terminator versus Terminator fight in this like small town, and they just level the town, and it's just like insane. And I didn't think, like, because the Terminator movies tend to be these big action-packed films. I didn't think they could match that, but you read some of it, it's like, this is great. I thought it was such a surprise and
nice
joy to remember why I like Terminator.
One of the advanced copies that I just have that I'm going to be sharing in the coming weeks is a Terminator versus Transformers. So I'll let you know.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll let you know how that goes.
And
nice. Well, I'm glad.
I was kind of disappointed when I read that RoboCop Terminator, RoboCop versus Terminator. I was a little like disappointed by that, and I think maybe had I read that first, I would have been like, "Well, this was fine. Terminator's not great anymore." But then I read this, and it was like, "Woo! Terminator's the top of the world."
Are you excited about Terminator: Back to the Future, which is coming out? No, it's Transformers Back to the Future. I can't remember which direction it goes, but I'm excited about that too.
I'm excited to read Volume 2 of this omnibus.
But... Okay, well, I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
My final pick is Batgirl Summer of Lies by Hope Larson, and this was fun because, look, I have a soft spot in my heart for Barbara Gordon's Batgirl, and I feel like, is it New 52 that brought her back as Batgirl? It's been a long time.
Yeah, Gail Simon's run brought her back.
Was just a long time since I felt like Batgirl really found her groove. Like the Burnside Batgirl, the look was cool. It was still kind of struggling though to find like, what is this character about? I feel like this is part of the Rebirth arc, which has been relatively good for Batgirl. Like Batgirl and the Birds of Prey has been a good time. But this one, Batgirl Summer of Lies, is a big Batgirl Nightwing team up. And it has a lot of flashbacks to the old school, like Batgirl and Robin days. Mm-hmm. It was like it was written for me. And I loved it start to finish. More of that is what I wanted. So that's my final favorite. My top 5 of 2020 graphic novels was Batgirl Summer of Lies by Hope Larson.
Well, I don't know if you remember, Nick, but 2020... it was a pretty big pandemic.
I do remember.
And so, like, what happened was the pandemic put us in lockdown, and that was the big reason I caught up on X-Men and got to House of X.
Yeah.
And so and I also read the Age of X-Man. And so, like, it was just, like, I was looking through my Goodreads, and it's just, like, a tsunami of X-Men comics that I enjoyed and some that I didn't enjoy.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of stuff in there. I forgot because 2020 was a million years long, but I really should have mentioned Stormwatch because Stormwatch is a series that Warren Ellis's Stormwatch was a series I started reading in 2020, but that was back in like February.
I know.
Back when we could go in places, maybe even January. I don't know. The point is that was one of the best things I had ever read, superheroes kind of wise, but I couldn't even remember that. Because I don't.
Well, to that point, when we were watching Birds of Prey, my wife was like floored that movie came out in 2020.
And that you
just completely shocked. Yeah. Completely shocked that was the same year.
Last time I saw a movie in theaters. Last time I saw a movie in theaters was with Nick, and it was Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
And he was joking because I was about to move, and he was like, "Oh, it's the last time to hang." I'm like, "No, we'll do other stuff."
Yeah, I kept calling it our last hang, but
did I know it would be the last time I did anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
you peaked.
Yeah, I peaked
smart
with
enough
Sonic
to know
the Hedgehog,
that. Yeah.
So yes, do you have? Somebody asked if you have any WandaVision homework you're gonna do before the show airs on Disney Plus.
Well, I haven't read that Vision run that everybody loves so much.
Tom King's. I was just talking about
King's. Yes. Nor have I read that 3-volume Scarlet Witch series. Both of which I was kind of excited to read.
I read some of that Scarlet Witch.
My wife read it and agreed with your takedown on it that it was really just sort of like she's magic, so what? So
yeah.
I don't know, but I mean, I would, I do plan to read some of that, so maybe I'll push that forward in the queue because that's soon, right? Was the 15th, January 15th.
This month.
That's coming out, so yeah, maybe I'll push that up to the top of the list.
And we talked about this a little with Wonder Woman 1984, but Marvel tends to adapt their comics a little bit more than the DC movies do.
Yeah, that's true.
Like you can usually find like, oh, this is Iron Man Extremis. This is Demon in a Bottle. This, that kind of stuff. Even the X-Men movies can be very adaptable.
Yeah.
And the DC ones tend to just be like, we're making a Superman movie. We're making a Wonder Woman movie. So I wonder if that mentality is going to translate over, like if something like Tom King's Vision is going to be important reading.
It seems like it. I mean, the looks of the trailers and things, it seems like they're pulling some of that aesthetic. So I don't know. And WandaVision is dropping week by week, right? That's not a big, like, all the episodes dumped at once.
If it's like The Mandalorian,
I think it is.
I think Disney
it's
has to. They don't have enough content totally to not.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Do that one by one to keep the conversation going. And it worked for them with the Mando. I mean, every week somebody's talking about it. So
it's true.
Yeah, that would be. I'm more excited for that than I thought it was going to be. And I thought we were supposed to get the Winter Soldier Falcon show first, but maybe the pandemic screwed that all up. But yeah, it's just kind of nice. Like, oh wow, this will be the first like Marvel thing we'll have to watch in a bit, in at least a year.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, I might read. I don't know how continuity important it is, but also I don't care about Vision continuity for the most point. So I'll probably finally read Tom King's Vision since I'm done with his Batman run.
Yeah.
Free.
Yeah, it's not a long run either, isn't it? Like 2 volumes, like
it's only
10 issues,
10 or 12 issues. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So I will still be reading more Hellblazer comics and more of that Batman run, and hopefully more of that New Mutants. So I don't know what else I'll throw in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess now it's Vision and Scarlet Witch got pushed to the top of my list. I wasn't even thinking about that.
Yeah.
And I did want to get back to the old school Captain America that I've been reading, so that's probably on there. I meant to read some 90s Steel just because I haven't since I was a kid, so maybe I'll throw that on the list for next week.
You and Shaquille O'Neal haven't read Steel since
just
the 90s.
Just the two of us. Yeah, it's been a while. Yep.
I forgot Kat Dennings is going to be in WandaVision.
Yeah, I didn't even know that until I saw. I think it was an Instagram thing that I saw and was like, "Oh, cool. All right." I like that character. It.
Yeah, I'm still a little annoyed that she didn't show up in Ragnarok.
I agree.
I thought there could have been like just a fun like when they were in New York looking for just a bit where like, oh, sorry about you and Jane. I mean, we can still be friends. Just a quick little nothing.
Oh yeah, because Kat Dennings would have nailed that scene. You know, if she would have got one scene to just kind of like do her thing, it would have been. I think it would have stood out even in the wackiness that was Ragnarok.
I shouldn't watch Two Broke Girls, right? I know I'm in a sitcom.
No.
I know I need a new sitcom, but I don't need something like Two Broke Girls.
You do not.
Okay.
No.
All right.
I think it was like a Black Friday deal, but we got the first season back when DVDs were cool, and my wife and I watched the entire first season thinking surely this gets better. It doesn't. It's terrible.
All right, so aside from that, then hopefully finish season 2 of Supergirl next week for me as well.
Yes, cool.
All right.
Yep. Outside of the Radio Meanwhile Network, I'm the host of How's Things, the official podcast and radio show of the David A. Howe Public Library. Very excited about our first episode of the new year. I interview Don Daneman, who's the original lead singer and guitarist from the band The Circle. We talk about their hit Red Rubber Ball, which was written by Paul Simon, and we talk a little bit about touring with the Beatles. Don was there on the final tour that the Beatles ever did. They opened for them at Candlestick Park, which was the last time the Beatles would ever perform live. So we talk about some behind the stage stuff, playing cards with John and Paul. It was a great conversation, so check that out.
Yeah, I was getting the link over on SoundCloud to share it.
Thanks, brah.
Yeah. That's kind of crazy. Like you say the last tour, like the tour where they're like, "Oh, we're never touring again."
Yes.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it is.
Did you change? Wait, it's called How's.
It's still SoundCloud.com/allthebooks. It's nothing different.
There it is.
Yep.
There's the link.
There it is. Yep.
And outside of Combo Coffee Break, I do previously on X-Men for Radio Meanwhile Network, where we talk about X-Men comics. The next episode coming out tomorrow is about Repo Man and Externally Yours from the animated series, and then a Sentinel Spotlight, and also 90s Music Got Me Like, where we talk about 90s music. The next episode, which I have to edit after this, is about... Kendra, what was the song? Oh, Bittersweet Symphony by the Verve.
There it is. I had it on the tip of my tongue. I couldn't remember either.
All right.
All right.
That's it. Do we say anything else? Bye, everybody.
We don't. So long.